Hi, folks. Welcome to Your World with Prakash Kapila. This episode, we have a very good and interesting episode based on PV Narasimha Rao Garu's prime ministership. So, if you are an Indian prime minister, there are few things that you have to deal with, no matter what. One is your poverty, other one is farmers internally, and the external is definitely China and Pakistan. So India and Pakistan have gone into three wars, and India and China have gone into a war, and a lot of Cold War has started as of late. So this particular show or this particular episode, we are going to talk about the thorny issues of the prime minister to deal with the Pakistan as well as to the China. So, neighboring countries, when they go to war, it is always a difficult thing for both the countries. Especially for India, what happens is the Indians are totally in a corner when it comes to both the countries trying to usurp the high ground in case of diplomacy and in case of military and in case of insurgency in India. So in this episode, we will be talking about how what the pressures have been faced by PV and how he was able to overcome and prevail upon the situations. So I have with us three of the distinguished guests, and I will allow them to introduce themselves, and then we can go ahead with our discussion. So starting with Ravindra Garu and clockwise, please go ahead.
Hi. Uh, Thank you for being part of this discussion on PV because I normally look at him like a statesman and the best prime minister India has ever produced. So I am Ravindra and I live in Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and I follow Indian politics very closely. And I will give my opinion on the PV's effort in tackling Pakistan and China. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, sir.
My name is Rajshekhar Ganti. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. And like anyone growing up, we did witness PV's role in ushering India into its current form. And I'm looking forward to this discussion to provide my views around his adeptness and how he handled a very tricky situation with our neighbors, and more importantly, establish the groundwork for what we see India is today. Looking forward to this. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
It's a great privilege to be part of this program to talk about Narasimha Garu and remembering him on his 100th birth year. And also, um, this program is making an appeal, talking about the great qualities of P.V. Garu and appealing for his Bharat Ratna. So hopefully, these energies of all NRI organizations across the US forge and impress the Indian government to uh, award Bharat Ratna to P.V. Garu. Great job, Prakash Garu, in this work. And it's a great honor to be part of this show. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks
And
all for yeah. Go ahead.
about me, I'm Srinivas Guduru, calling from New York, USA. By profession, I'm an IT project manager. So that's about me. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So we have one self-entrepreneur, one IT professional from Bay Area, and one from financial district. And myself, I am in IT for like 20 years. I've been in all financial companies. So moving on. So to give the context to our audience, so India is on the left side, it has Pakistan, and on the top, it has got China. So during the 1947-48, India-Pakistan got divided, and then from then on, the skirmishes started happening. Before PV Narasimha Rao became prime minister, we had at least three wars and lot of insurgency has happened from across the border with Pakistan, and the China border was also very malleable and disaligned, if I may say, because China wanted to say that part of the area which India is having its sovereignty as its own. So there is a dispute about the sovereignty of the land, and therefore a prime minister who has taken the oath should make sure that both of them see, if India and China, if Pakistan and China come together and do a war with India, then the casualties will be very high. So that was the most crucial aspect of the context in which PV has come. So, Srinivas Garu, if you want to take ahead, please go and give your starting points.
As you rightly pointed out, we are surrounded by very belligerent, very hostile neighbors who always try to either grab a piece of land or to raise unrest. Pakistan has always been raising Kashmir as the its life savior. To whenever there is a political unrest in their country, they always take Pakistan or Kashmir as the debatable topic and divert the attention. And China trying to pursue it economic imperialism, um, and especially during 1950s when there is a question about Tibet as well as certain areas of India which it claimed, always has been another hostile neighbor in terms of border. So I'll just like to give a quick glance of what happened between these two countries and what actually caused these skirmishes or unrest on the border.
Please.
Let us try to look at it. So I'm sharing my screen. Hope you guys are able to
Right.
see it.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So here we have India, and up on the west we have Pakistan, and on the north we have Pakistan. They basically, after the independence, Pakistan wanted to be separated, and that's where a lot of effort has been made to identify the borders with Pakistan. And with China, China has been claiming certain areas, especially if you look at Aksai Chin and as well as the parts of Arunachal, which are marked with the lines in orange. So that is where China has been trying to claim its supremacy uh, and leading to the border dispute. So this whole area marked with red, these are the mostly disputed areas.
Excellent, sir. So, keeping this slide like this only, can you just keep
Okay.
that slide like that? So,
Sure.
Ravindra Garu, and you want to use this slide and give your starting points?
So, as shared on the slide, right, the China claims that Arunachal Pradesh is part of their Tibet portion, and because I think India and China being the oldest civilizations, and there are a lot of kingdoms and all, and when that power of the kingdoms, right, power changes from one kingdom to another kingdom, there is always a question of some certain areas which are bordering to their kingdoms be in the dispute side. So that is the reason world's oldest countries will have more border disputes. The reason is each one show different timeline in claiming that particular piece as their part of their portion. So that is where the even right from the British side, there is a uneasy border dispute with Arunachal Pradesh with the British as well. Whereas, however, British awarded that whole portion to the Indian Union. That is where India is claiming that is part of us, right? And that is one. And second thing is, yeah, even China to get hold of complete Tibet took so many decades. Then only they can come to the Arunachal Pradesh saying that this is part of ours. So it took a long time actually. So for China to come in terms with Tibet to claim Arunachal Pradesh. So meanwhile, it just left as is. However, it is like a what is that called? China wants to control India by showing these two disputes, and frequently making it them like internationalizing the issue. That is how it want to control. Means if your neighbor, right, starts accumulating more and more weapons, India also is forced to buy so many weapons, right? So that is how it wants to put check on India's economy as well in terms of the army control and all. That is the China side. Whereas for Pakistan, the very thing was uh, Pakistan as a country, I don't think it would have survived had it not been showing Kashmir as a dispute, which binds the whole country. Otherwise, Pakistan is actually a very, very fractured country in terms of ethnic based, like Punjab and Sindh, and they have uneasy tensions among them. So for them, Kashmir is just a excuse to say that our army doing something. And also during those times, when Benazir Bhutto, being a women prime minister, used to use her charm in saying that India is bullying their own the Kashmiris, and actually Kashmiri rightfully belongs to Pakistan, and
Okay.
so many countries bought that narrative. Actually, they are all against India at that time.
Right. Right.
Especially America, they used to think that the Indians are bullying them. So that is the context they always used. So it really, and if you look at PV Narasimha time, India is very poor country that time. It does not have this much power to buy army or anything. It requires really statesmen to fight the army, as Prakash clearly mentioned, fight the poverty in India, as well as with the two bullying nations is a bigger challenge. And that is where PV actually managed it very well.
Okay.
That's my
Okay.
point.
Sir Ganti Garu,
Yes.
what you want to go ahead with
Sure.
your starting points?
Yes, previously identified here, right? I would like to bring attention to the fact that during the time when PV was leading the country, this context actually become much more than what it meets the normal eye, because the collapse of the Soviet Union had just begun.
Oh, yeah.
The US support for the fight in Afghanistan is now losing its steam, and as a result, Pakistan needed to find out what it can do in order to divert that attention elsewhere. And at the same time, we had China dealing with its own internal issues related to the Uyghurs. So I think PV was in a very unique situation. And as we will talk through the rest of our talk, that I want to continue to point out is how he used this with his very clever, across the board, bipartisan diplomacy to actually bring it in India's advantage. I think this picture is very relevant, more so around PV's time. So those would be my opening remarks around this.
Awesome, sir. So Srinivas Garu, continue, sir.
Sure. So we'll just go to some of the basics of this confrontation and how we were able to either able to control, rather administer the areas that are being claimed by the other countries. So if we start talking about Pakistan, there are 4 different lines of control, which we've been actually talking about for decades. So one is the line of control, another is the working boundary with Pakistan, the international boundary, which is accepted by both the nations, and there is a Sir Creek strait, which actually is like a water body. So these are the 4 areas which we had been having confrontations. So to show this pictorially, the entire red colored border is what the Maharaja of Kashmir acceded to India. So he acceded it, saying that, okay, except for the defense and the currency, those kind of major infrastructural things, Kashmir remains independent. But later on, Kashmir became part of India after various commissions have been established. So you have Pakistan occupying this area. Green is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, and
That was the first war between India and Pakistan.
The first war, correct. And they drew a line of control, saying that, okay, this is our area and rest is India's. But India has been claiming this whole area as its own. That is about the line of control. You can see this dotted line. And you have the working boundary, which is actually between Punjab in Pakistan and Kashmir. So this is the area which Pakistan has been claiming as its own. So this is another line of line which is dividing in both the countries and which is confrontational again. And we also talked about circuit. So this is giving so that we know what context we are at and what are the areas that are actually under dispute. That's why I took you to a little bit back into the history. So Pakistan claims this entire circuit, and this is a green border is the one which actually Pakistan has been claiming as its. So that means whatever is to the west of this green dot, Pakistan has been claiming it, and India has been claiming whatever to the east from the red line is its. So basically both are claiming this strait, which is a water body, and this water body is very important because it has a lot of oil and other reserves. So both the countries have been fighting for this particular area. If you look at geographically, this is Gujarat, and this is the water body, Sar Creek water body, which has been the bone of contention for both the countries.
Okay, so having said that, when PV came in, Srinivas Garu, so he had all these pressures. So when we move into how he dealt with Pakistan, what is your take? What did he started doing? We can keep this water body, and maybe we can go to the POK thing. Yeah, that one.
This is better.
Right. So keeping this slide, so what do you think he started doing that made a difference in, because this disputed has been there for like 50 years before he became
50, ever since the partition.
Right. So how did he, at least 40 years, if not 50. So then everybody inherits this problem. So what do you think he started doing that tilted the favor towards India?
It's a good question, Andy. Basically, the PV's regime started during at the earliest 90s. That is when there's a lot of insurgency from the Kashmiri front. I mean, the Kashmiri militants front. So, as Pakistan always was thinking this unfinished business, and the Muslims within the Jammu and Kashmir has been agitating for independent Kashmir. So, to give it a legality, Benazir Bhutto, the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, on February 4th of 1990, she said, "This is a solidarity with Kashmir. So we are with the Kashmir, and we're going to fight this war for 1,000 years or until our death, whatever." But she kind of encouraged the militants within Pakistan, and this is where the Prime Minister had to jump into action and try to make sure things are working out in India's favor. So, Bhutto's parliament, basically Pakistani parliament, they passed a resolution saying that we don't accept this accession of Kashmir to India. So they said this is going to be an independent country, and we'll stand by Kashmiris. She visited Pakistan and she said Azad Kashmiri. But that is where PV Garu, he stepped in, and he immediately held a parliament session, and he said on February 22nd of 1994, they unanimously passed Kashmir resolution saying that the state of Jammu Kashmir is ours, and Pakistan must vacate the areas of Union States of Jammu, the POK basically. That
So
is
he
where
rallied the whole parliament, even though he didn't
Parliament.
get full majority. That's a
Correct.
good achievement in trying to align the political scene. So, Ravindra, you want to jump in? You want to put in your...
Prior to nuclear weapons, it's all about going after another country, occupy, and power is your might. That is the take before the you can say 1950s. But post 1950s, it's all about your soft power in the international world, where you diplomatically how you win wars. That is all about since 1947. So here, what PV did was he identified the correct combination and sent them to the UN Geneva, and then where he won war against Pakistan by changing the mind of China's delegation, and also the Iran, and also he sent people from Kashmir, certain like Syed, some Muslim politician saying that we were not oppressed. So he has used all his channels all around, and finally he actually doused this whole Kashmir issue there on the UN on the day when Benazir Bhutto started. He closed it. That's a very big victory actually, even though for now when you look back we think it is easy, but it is not that easy how he did the whole thing. And he used Vajpayee being a opposition leader. He sent him there. So he gave a very clear signal saying that India will be one for Pakistan when it comes to Kashmir. So that is the message he gave it there.
Right.
That is what he won actually.
Ganti Garu, you want
Yes.
to...
Yeah. I just want to build on the same. So as we talked about, the time at that point in time was very different because you had the collapse of the USSR going on. So China was getting an opportunity to become the regional power. And Benazir Bhutto was trying everything that she can in her might to use the OIC. So she
Yeah.
led a resolution to actually drag India and the Kashmir issue into UN Human Resources, UNHRC. And the way PV dealt with this, I think we need to discuss this maybe in another round as well, is
It's too,
he
yeah.
presented a singular united India by actually sending resources and leaders from the opposition, leaders from the disputed area of Kashmir, which is representatives from the Hurriyat, the leaders of the National Congress then, Mr. Farooq Abdullah, and Ahmad Ansari and the other folks that were there that were representing a single united front. And while he sent his other delegation there, he was working closely with 7 other parties of the OIC to actually get them to not be on Pakistan's side when the resolution was being discussed in Geneva. So I'll pass this along, but I think we should come back to that and discuss the specifics of PV's genius at
Yeah.
best.
What I liked about that conference was in 1947, there was a plebiscite where they said, okay, the area from where the Pakistan has come into Kashmir and where the India has pushed away the area, armies of Kashmir back, armies of Pakistan back from Kashmir, that
Right.
area is the line of control and will maintain that line of control. And each country will get a chance after 50 years of how to do it. That's called the plebiscite.
Right.
So Vajpayee used that small, byline and said, now it's time for us to actually govern the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, give it back to us. So the
Correct.
whole thing went upside down. So
Yes.
Benazir Bhutto went there saying that lot of Kashmiris are being targeted. Now Vajpayee said that, okay, you have to give back the land that you occupied before 47 so that we can do the actual plebiscite.
Yes.
So that was one thing which was very much interesting, which turned around the whole thing. So then the oil exporting countries, OIC and the others, they were like taken away. Now, if they want to adopt this resolution, then the POK has to be given to India. So that
Correct.
was the master move by Vajpayee and PV.
Yes.
The
And
other thing was
the way he has actually rallied the other countries behind India, that was very interesting. Bringing Iran, he voted. There's an instance where he favored China in one of the meetings of UM, and that's when China has softened its stand, and actually said, you know what, we need to review this. That's how, instead of supporting Pakistan, they came in favor of India, saying that it's a bit deferred and reviewed again.
very good
That is
point. Very good point that you have made. Because you don't want China and Pakistan to attack you, and simultaneously, when you are economically weak, when you are vertically divided in this country, in India, about that Babri Masjid and others, there was a Mandal Commission going on, which divided everything on caste basis, and Kashmiris were pushed out of Kashmir. So there was and Naxalite problem, and so many problems were there, and India was like in a melting pot, basically. So not having the biggest countries gang up together was a masterstroke.
Right,
I should say.
right. And what PV did that is noteworthy is he actually doused any fire from China by giving them support on their fight against Uyghurs so that he could divert the defense forces protecting the Indian border with China and divert them to where it was needed, which is to stop the insurgency across the border with Pakistan. So he had to
Right.
do, and very few people realize as to how he played his cards. He took
Yes.
care of China first, so the army could be freed. Then he sent them to stop the insurgency to Pakistan. And then
Oh,
he got Pakistan's allies to turn against them. That's where we talk about his Chanakya Niti.
yeah, yeah. So now moving to China. So obviously we have already moved to China. So what do you think moved the needle um, for peace between India and China?
So, so can I start?
Yes, you go ahead, please.
Yes. Yeah. So I think the prime driver was, again, it is driven with the US withdrawing its support for the fight in Afghanistan and looking at Pakistan as a new ally, and Beijing seizing the opportunity to become the next power in the subcontinent. So using those two, PV being the statement that he is, he was actually thinking far ahead and said, how do I not mess with China right now? I have other problems to deal with. So what he struck is what is called in diplomacy channels as the art of doing something by actually doing nothing. So what he did was he actually got around to maintain status quo in the border disputes. And he basically said, hey, we are with you 100%. Let's agree to not do anything. Let's agree to keep things as they are and continue to have our conversations, so we will not have any border disputes to deal with. And that established his look east policy. And our current strength in ASEAN, SARC, and everything else that we're looking at right now, the seeds were sown by PV Garu. And he was a man far ahead of his time. He was looking 10, 20 years down the line. What do we do now so that we are ready 10, 20 years down the line? So I think that's a master stroke. I mean, nobody realizes it. We are now able to talk about it because we witnessed it. But I think that was how he took care of these things. And he had excellent people on his side, right? He used Vajpayee for what he brought to the table. He very deftly used Manmohan Singh to take care of economy while he dealt with these items. And then he had wonderful statesmen. I think a couple of those names come to the mind, who are our foreign secretaries. The other thing he did very well, it is actually worth noting, even though it's a little bit off topic, is establishing diplomatic relations with Israel. Yeah. Nobody sees how important and critical it was. By doing so, and it is also noteworthy how he did that. He actually got Yasser Arafat, who at that point in time was leading the Palestine Liberation Organization, and he had Arafat on India's ground state that you should have an embassy in Israel so you can control and contribute to Middle East. So he played his pawns all around to make sure that when the time came about, he had all the I's dotted and T's crossed. Right, I think that's a master move. I don't think anyone comes close to what he did.
Ravindra, you want to pitch in?
Yeah. See, even if you look at the borders between China and India, even in the recent skirmish, right, in the month of May, it is very relevant to talk now. The main thing is our borders are very approachable from China side than from India side. That is the
Altitude.
very first thing we need to realize why Congress party or PV Narasimha Rao, they maintained a status quo there. That is the main reason they could come and occupy our land recently also, because they were more approachable than from our side. Okay, so that is where he kept this whole border as a status quo. Main reason, because India was not economically challenging China that time as well. And the second thing was as one of our guests mentioned, saying he established a relationship between all the Asian look east policy, because they all have disputes with China. So all these seeds will be used in future against China. And even if you look at now, whatever current government is enjoying, everything started from there. And one more thing was not just PV Narasimha Rao's establishing with Israel, but nuclear test also, PV Narasimha Rao made everything ready actually before Vajpayee started triggering the Pokhran 2. So he is means this only shows the kind of the long vision he has in mind, because he always keep thinking what I can do if I do this policy for a person who is not yet born yet. So that is the policy PV has. So he is a visionary. So that is my take.
Yeah, Srinivas Garu, you want to talk about your perspective in China and India?
Yeah, definitely. The primary reason why China and India have been having this kind of fight is it's not something similar to what we are having on the west side with Pakistan. It's totally because of the mistrust. China was believing that India is pro Tibet, and as well as it gave asylum to
Dalai Lama.
Dalai Lama. So these are the kind of mistrusts that certain things have perpetrated China to go ahead and actually, fight with India. There are also certain areas which we had certain infrastructure have been either being built by China on the other side, on their side, or India building fence on its side. So these are the areas which actually happened between China and India in terms of the clashes. And PV Garu, he wasn't supported by his own Congress people during that time, because they thought he is actually reversing the policies of Nehru, which is not accepting line of control, line of actual control. Line of control is in Pakistan. And of course, economic policies, he already started refurbishing and moving India towards the modern century. So in a way, what he did is he adopted Nehru's policies of maintaining status quo. That kind of thing, he gained strength from within the country. And by this 1993, the treaty of Ceylon, basically, they signed an agreement so that this kind of skirmishes won't take. After 1975, only about after 15 years, that's when things happened, because China and India weren't getting into this frequent hostility.
Right.
So, because of this agreement on maintenance of peace and tranquility, this agreement has eased certain tensions, and they focused on more towards the economic areas where we agree. That is what is important. You have to understand, a statesman or an intelligent person would start. This is one famous thing I heard about those times.
Sir, we are getting out of time. So, what is your final closing point?
The way PV has addressed this, as well as signed a treaty with China, has reduced the tensions between both of our countries, and he played a mastermind by drafting it in such a way that we are neither agreeing or disagreeing on any of the things, right? We are maintaining status quo, and we look at the even the pockets of contention between China and India also, he said, we're going to address item by item, not as the entire 3,200 line of border. So these are the areas that he has played a wiser role and statesman's role, and brought both the countries to peace.
Awesome. Ravindra Garu, what's your closing remark?
Yeah, means only on the basis of economic empowerment to India, he is qualified for a Bharat Ratna. But most important thing is the way he maintained, the way he made the whole world turn away from Pakistan and looking towards India is where his diplomatic win against this Pakistan. And with China, he just actually doused all the fire in the borders, and bringing them status quo itself is a very big victory. Yeah, there is no question about him being.
Ganti Garu, quickly.
Yes. So with China, he actually nipped any kind of aggression in the bud by making sure that there were no discussions. We'll just maintain status quo, which was need of the hour. And then with his diplomatic triumph at UNHRC, once and for all, they were able to start to expose as to what Pakistan was playing the Western allies into, and open the Western world's eyes into what really is taking place between India and Pakistan. I think those two by themselves speak for volumes as to why he deserves a Bharat Ratna.
Awesome and excellent.